taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for our news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. November 6th, 2019. It's the Wednesday edition of the show, unless you're the Mad Queen, who is with us today as well. And for her, it's like crazy o'clock in the morning on Thursday. But thank you for being here at this crazy hour. You are the Mad Queen, after all. So I guess we should expect this kind of thing from you. But also, I'm here as always with Cybsidian, the beast who never sleeps, and we're here with all of you, so welcome to the podcast tonight. If you are listening live, please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We will respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast, and don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us in YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. We appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up to those platforms. So if you want the latest info sooner, I encourage you to hit the link in the description and subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. All right. Some Cyberpunk 2077 news tonight, finally.
Before we start, I would like to answer a question that Neon made in the comments. Dislike already? Yes, actually, when Cyb told me about the podcast 4 hours ago, I clicked the link to copy the link and put it on Twitter. Excuse me, and it already had a dislike.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that happens very regularly. Very regularly.
It really warms my heart to know that somebody out there hates me so much.
Someone is so devoted to liking our content that there's always that one. It's
love.
It's a love dislike. Anyway, you can all counteract that by slamming that like button. We really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. All right, so yes.
Also, before we get into that, I just want everybody's opinion on this. We're rolling ever and ever closer to our winter schedule, so there'll be a small mix up in the in what times and times of the day that we're doing stuff and streaming and stuff like that. We're going to be doing hopefully a lot more. I have mentioned that we have a new guest who will be joining us quite regularly, coming on to do some streaming with us. A new face. It's going to be great. However, we're thinking about keeping we're even adding an extra night or two to the podcast in which we do ASMR game reviews. Really slow and talking into the microphone and making like clicks with the mouth and that. So if you're into that, please let us know. And if you're not into that, you should probably also
definitely let us know.
Because if this is not something that's a good idea at all, then we'll probably just not do it.
This idea is completely new to me. So
yeah. I thought I'd surprise everybody with it.
It was most indubitably not my idea, but hey, I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, anyway, yeah. So the podcast schedule may be changing up. We'll try to change it as little as possible, but we do, of course, want to add more content if at all possible. And only things that you actually want to listen to and watch, though. So definitely let us know. Join the Discord server. Talk to us in that content requests channel. We really appreciate when you do that. Okay, can I list the topics now? Are we?
Yeah. List the topics, and we'll see if you got all of them, because we do have some other news that may impact Cyberpunk 2077. So we'll kind of quickly try and cover that today as well.
Okay. Probably. Well, we might as well start with Cyberpunk 2077. Later on, we're going to be talking about how the fantastic what's a good adjective I'm looking for here? The country of China, no adjectives needed, may not be as loyal to the video game companies that are bending over backward for it as they are being for it. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, looking at some new Chinese regulations that are going to hurt online gaming there. So is it going to be as profitable as it might have been for companies to really, bend the knee to the Chinese regime. We'll talk about that a bit. We'll also talk a little more about Blizzard and everything that's happening there, because there's some more information that's come out. J. Allen Brack has been making statements, and so we'll talk about that a little bit, follow up on the whole Blizzard story. And to end off the podcast today, we're going to be taking a little trip into the past, looking back about 10 years to predictions that people in the gaming industry were making about, where gaming was going to be in 10 years. So that should be fun to look at. It's always fun to look like, it'll be like watching Back to the Future Part 2, right? This is what life's going to be like in 2015. Absolutely. Flying cars, holographic sharks, jumping out of theaters, and all of that, and yet no smartphones. But first, let's talk about, of course, Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, but that's the reason for the smartphones There's a reason why the smartphones weren't predicted back then.
And why is that?
Because back then they made this landline phones that you could carry away, not very far away, but you could use it on your yacht and things like that. And people didn't like to use them outside their houses because they thought that the signal could be interfered, and they were afraid of talking because they thought they would be spied. So their popularity decreased, and that's why, for instance, writers thought that mobile phones weren't going to be a thing.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't remember people talking like that. I remember car phones, but I was a little young when the original Back to the Futures were made, so.
Well, I learned about that listening to the Queen of Cyberpunk, Pat Cadigan, in a speech she gave, and she talked about that. It was very interesting.
Okay, that is interesting. All right. But let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Speaking of predictions of the dark future, or the dark present, depending on how you look at things. But as far as the game goes, Cyberpunk 2077, it turns out we're going to be getting twice as much Keanu Reeves in the game as was originally slated to be in the game. And this apparently, we can credit Keanu Reeves himself, who's playing Johnny Silverhand in the game, of course, as most of you know. But apparently he loved the character so much, and he loved being part of the game so much that he influenced CD Projekt Red to actually increase the amount that Johnny Silverhand is in the game. And this comes to us from, I believe, an Italian. It's a journalist, I believe Italian, Gianluca Rocco, who was interviewing Luca Ward, who does a lot of Keanu Reeves dubbing work in a foreign language. Again, I believe Italian. The Facebook message that this comes from was posted in Italian, so I'm assuming that he's the Italian dub VO artist, and so he does a lot of Keanu Reeves's dubs in movies and things like that, and of course, and he will be doing it in Cyberpunk 2077. And he's saying, yeah, they doubled the hours that I was going to be working on this game, because Keanu Reeves, loved the game so much and wanted his part to be bigger. So don't know exactly how that went down, but I imagine that
we've heard, we covered this on the community podcast on Sunday, and we did briefly talk about the fairly substantiated rumors on this, and that is that so Keanu Reeves came over, and they just started kind of like talking and going through it, and as they were kind of like showing him the studio and giving him the grand old tour, Keanu started to love, like, to really fall in love with the world, with the story, with the scope, with the character, and he started to, like, we've heard rumors that he got right into it. What was supposed to just be like a kind of a meet and greet actually turned out into like him like trying a couple things and like really getting into it, and then he basically just was like, I like this so much, I'm just going to double it. And we've heard that the cost, he didn't force them to double the cost. He actually gave them a deal is what we've heard, unsubstantiated, but that's kind of what we've heard. Mad Queen, have you heard anything else kind of that you can talk about this, whether or not that's true or not, about him like basically doubling up the time and also giving them a cut off of what they were planning, or what they had prearranged, because he was actually willing to go the extra mile?
I know nothing that I can comment on.
Okay. So we've heard it through a number of we've heard it, again, unsubstantiated, but it really does seem to be fitting what's coming out now. And we knew this a while ago, and we're some people in the community have been chatting about this back and forth, but this is really where we kind of started to hear these rumors and kind of started to get more and more of this stuff nodded at us, going, yeah, no, this does appear to be a thing. So that's really, really cool, if that's how it is. So yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to.
It's going to be funny. It's going to be funny when people that don't know the character of Johnny Silverhand, that is hyped for the fact that Keanu Reeves is there. An actor that usually is like, quote unquote, more or less a good person in films, if we don't count the Neon Demon. And Johnny Silverhand, he's actually a jerk. He's a total and absolute jerk. And it's going to be really funny to see the reactions of people to the things that he's going to do. Because let's not forget that he's a person that sent a bunch of innocent people to attack Arasaka security officers that were armed to the teeth, and lots of death and destruction and then injured. And he's the kind of person that does that. And I'm really curious to discover what's his agenda in 2077.
He was just expecting all those people to use bullet time is what he was expecting. He was like, no, guys, just like this. Sorry.
But this is something that they already commented. They already commented. Developers, they didn't really say that they doubled the time, but they already said that he had a lot of screen time.
It sure looks like it. If he's going to be following you around, if he's going to be in your head most of the time, just kind of hanging out in the background in a lot of scenes, plus I imagine in the foreground in a lot of scenes as well.
And also, I guess we're going to get a lot of flashbacks.
Oh, really? Do tell. Spill.
Well,
whatever you can.
I mean, this is no info. This is I mean, I think it's obvious. It's obvious that at some point of the game, we're going to be explained what happened from 2013 to the time to the 2023 when Silverhand died. So we'll have to see a lot of flashbacks.
Do you think we'll be getting that in info, like reading books, or do you think like that'll actually be cutscenes?
I suspect that we're talking about braindance in here.
Oh yes.
Okay,
that's right.
I have heard the opposite of this. I have heard that we will only be getting the flashbacks. I'm using air quotes, flashbacks, in the form of Johnny relaying or talking about what happened, not seeing it. There's no, there's no visual component. So I've heard two different things.
Hearing the last version of Chipping In, I don't believe that we are not going to see the Arasaka riot.
Yeah, well, again, I wouldn't. I don't like. I think that we might see it in like kind of like a grainy video format. I don't think we will be in it like a brain dance. I don't think we will like literally be there, because you got to remember that is a different city that they have to render. That is a different dozens of different locations that they have to render. Totally different styles, art, armor, everything on the street. Like, styles have changed a lot since then. The city has changed a lot since then. I mean, they set off on a big buster there. So I like, just from what I've been hearing and what I've been speculating on, I think that we will not see something directly like that, and that it'll be a little bit different.
What makes me suspicious is that developers never wanted to talk about braindance and what's going on with braindance in the game. We know that braindance is in the game, but what's gonna happen with it is a mystery. And they've been
Yeah.
asked several times direct questions about braindance, and they always said the same. Sorry, can't comment on this. That's what makes me suspicious the most.
Very interesting.
It's definitely a tough thing to kind of figure out, because we're looking at significantly different outcomes, requirements, all of that kind of stuff. It's like we have to get to the point of figuring this out beforehand. So they have to get to a point of figuring out all of this stuff on the technical side beforehand. So we haven't really heard that very much as far as the brain dance goes, because of that reason, because it's a very, anytime you're doing like dream sequences stuff, you're amping up, or you're doubling the work that you have to do as far as like a lot of like costumes and items and stuff like that. If it's recent, that's not a problem. But if you're going back like 10 years, and in this case, if we're going back 60 plus years, that is a lot of changes that have to happen. So
Yeah.
I'm not sold on whether or not that's the plan, but I'm also not saying that it's off the table. I'm just saying I would doubt it currently, from based off of everything that I kind of know and have seen.
Well, I'll say it would be
Do
too
you
bad.
remember-
It would be really too bad if they didn't utilize it to sort of give you some history, because it's such a perfect technology for being able to do that.
Yeah, but at the same time, you got to remember that if brain dance is a thing, then they also have like augmented brain dances and stuff like that. And again, it's like that's like hundreds of, possibly thousands of different like sets that you have to create. And
Well, it
things
doesn't.
that you have to create.
You have complete control. Like the way I could see it working is if they kept it to a confined area, say like the Arasaka building during the raid, and
That's exactly what I was going to say.
oh, sorry for stealing your thunder there. But yeah, if they did that, and if it is part of the central quest of the game, so that it's worth putting all those resources into making this happen, then I could see it definitely being worth their while to create something in Braindance. But anyway, Mad Queen, I'll let you comment on this.
I mean. It is impossible. It is totally and absolutely impossible to be a nerd of Cyberpunk 2020, to have control over a video game, and to not put several very important scenes, like the attack on the Arasaka Towers or the Arasaka Riot.
But it's kind of so like in a comparison, it's kind of like it's kind of like the Fallout universe. In the Fallout universe, you have these like VR like ultra high tech VR type machines that do full dives, and it's like they only use that in two scenarios. You have the Battle of Anchorage, and then you've got the Sleepy Happy Town thingy that you that the player finds their dad at. Spoiler for a game that's been out for like ever, and they were really limited in what they could do with that. And like they even had to like make the Happy Crazy World, they had to make that like, wasn't it like forced black and white perspective, because they didn't have the color palettes to throw into the game, if I'm remembering correctly. This hop into a VR machine and see a completely different reality, like that's a lot of stuff to add to a game, and you really are putting yourself or kind of like you're putting yourself into a box or into a corner because of the amount of stuff that you have to deal with.
Well,
and the amount of
like
Let me remind you a thing. Obviously, games are an iterative process, and maybe that was at the time that I'm going to explain now. It's not now. This can happen. But do you remember this poster at CD Projekt Red that said that Cyberpunk 2077 had two different sandbox environments?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I've always assumed that the second sandbox environment was going to be the net.
Yes,
but we speculated a long time ago
that
too.
That was the idea. That was the idea originally that we said. Our idea. We don't know the idea of CD Projekt. That's the idea that we were speculating. But now that you are mentioning about creating a parallel world, which is Night City in the 2020s, it's like,
Right. And again, it would depend on how big a part of the game that is.
Yeah.
If you're going to be spending 30-40% of your game time there, then of course that's really high. But if you're going to be spending a significant amount of game time there, it might be worth their resources to put it in. In Fallout 3, that virtual quest in I can't remember what the town's called, but the virtual quest you do, that was a side quest, but of course, no, it was part of the main quest because you were rescuing your dad from it. Quest. That's right. But it still was like a very it was a very confined area. There was this one tiny little neighborhood you could walk around in.
Yes.
And it was very simple.
And
the great thing is that while in the video game, putting limits that are not natural breaks immersion, but in the meta video game, that would be the brain dance inside the video game, doing so wouldn't be so unnatural.
Very true. Good thoughts. James Thomas with the super chat. Thank you so much. Very generous of you. Really appreciate that, especially considering some news that has been dropping about the future of monetization on YouTube. We won't dive terribly into that, but there was some doom and gloom stuff reported today as far as new regulations. Anyway, won't get into that. But we might talk about that at some point in the future. We want to find out more about it before we really dive into it. But thank you so much for the super chat. James Thomas says, what if near the end of the game you become a digital ghost to help the next generation of people fight corporations, following Johnny Silverhand's footsteps?
If you want to fight the corporations, you don't need to be a digital ghost. In fact, you can be a rocker boy or you can be a media.
Well, of course, but he's just speculating. If you are a digital ghost, I don't know. Interesting idea. And then
it is
Mr. Skullbaby sort of follows that up by saying, V is for vessel. Johnny takes your body. Calling it now. Interesting prediction. I have had similar thoughts.
I have heard this. One thing that I have heard is that if you're playing, the male type version, that he takes your body, and if you're playing the female type version, then
I will let him.
Oh dear.
Yes,
I was going to say, Alex.
We know you want to.
Cunningham takes your body, but of course, Mad Queen's got to get all. We got to get.
She's so fucking hot.
Yeah. So, this is something that's been kind of bouncing around in the rumor mill for quite a while, and it's both of these takes are very interesting. Ash, I did send you the 4 pictures of Johnny Silverhand's guitar. So if you want to throw those up, they're quite interesting to look at. These popped out on Twitter today from the official Cyberpunk game, so I'm sure most people have seen this. But so just because we're talking about Johnny Silverhand, I thought I'd shoot those over to you. But it's an interesting theory as to what is the ultimate goal going on here, and the fact that we don't know, that's a very good thing. The fact that we don't know and where this goes or where this leads in the future, also a good thing. And I can imagine a couple of different endings that could play off of this. Johnny might, in one case, decide that, no, you're the perfect kind of guy or girl or whatever, and he doesn't need to take you over because you're just so cool, and he's just going to bide his time and hack into somebody else down the road. Or he could say, you're such a goody two-shoe, you don't deserve this body, and then he takes it. And that's a really interesting theory too. So all of these are really, really good theories, and I really like the general concept of them. So yeah, I'm gonna give props to whoever was at the studio filming this, or being the person who's holding the guitar, because that's pretty cool. I really want to know who this is over at CDPR. who's holding Johnny's guitar, because that's pretty rad. Mad Queen, how does it
Somebody
stack
way
up?
cooler than us.
How does it stack up as far as you know for the original?
Wait a second, because I'm on YouTube, because I'm reading the comments and the screen went black, and the live button went gray. Are we still live?
We are, yep.
Yeah, you're
Absolutely.
still live. He's changing over the footage. You're a few seconds. You're like a minute
Okay.
behind or so.
Okay. No, I was afraid that sometimes the other day I was doing a stream and YouTube cut me 3 times. But yes, repeat the question. So sorry,
How well does this guitar match with the lore, the original, design of Johnny's guitar?
Well, there are several different designs of guitar. Well, this can be one of them. One of the most popular things, and I always thought that not Johnny but Carrie Eurodyne used, is that cables that connected your guitar directly to your brain, so you could mentally change things. Like instead of a pedal, you did it with your mind.
Oh, crazy. Why even need fingers? Just play the guitar with your brain. You can have
Well,
a
because the part
27
of the
string
brain
guitar.
controlled the effects, and you control the music.
Yes,
with
but you
your
gotta.
fingers.
I'm thinking outside the box here, Mad Queen. You gotta think outside the box. Think of the possibilities. I'm totally
Yes,
joking
but
too. So
you can use your brain to create music with something that creates music artificially, but not with strings. I mean, you need strings to move to create the noise, the sound. You can't do that with the brain.
I I wonder, maybe it's just an enhanced version of that brain flute that was on Futurama. That's a joke.
that what's it called? I can't remember what the thing is called.
I can't
So I'm
remember
trying
what
to
it's
bring
called
up
either, but
trying to
it
bring
was
up
pretty
another
it was
picture
pretty
here.
funny.
Here it is. Here's another picture of the guitar. Sort of a more close up on the body of the guitar here. So you can see all the stickers and stuff all over it.
Yeah, I remember a model of guitar that is in the Rockaboy expansion of the source book that didn't have the upper part of the neck of the guitar. I don't know how it's called. It was flat.
Yeah, I'm looking it up here. Just like
Looks so cool.
I checked my art, and then I'm just kind of checking the internet here. I don't actually see a picture where the front of the guitar was ever shown. It was always the back of the guitar that was shown.
But now we're talking about this guitar or in the lore?
In the traditional 2020 lore.
In the you give me a second, I'll find it. Well, in fact, in the cover of the Rockaboy source book. Let's see. Cut the class.
There's only one picture that I can find where there's any bit of the front of the guitar shown. But
Oh no, this is not exactly. This is not exactly a guitar.
All right. Well, maybe if you find it, maybe we'll show something later on in the show here. But yes, so some good speculation today. I definitely like thinking about what we're going to see in this game, and whatever they are doing with the brain dance, it's gonna be something cool because they're keeping it very under wraps. They've even shown us glimpses of the net now, which was something else they were keeping under wraps. But they're still keeping tight-lipped about what's going on with the brain dance, and so
I
really
suspect
cool.
I suspect that the easiest way for them to integrate multiplayer into the actual base game is to actually tie in the multiplayer directly in with the brain dance, and that whenever you're booting up the multiplayer mode, it's just booting up brain dance, and then you're just doing stuff with other people on the net in the brain dance. That's again speculation on my part.
That would certainly be the most immersive way, but then it's like V is playing. You're not playing as a character in the multiplayer. Then you're playing as V, playing a character in the multiplayer. I don't know. It could work. I don't necessarily see it going that way, but it could definitely work.
Well, because if you are in a multiplayer, As V can't die,
Right. Yeah, true.
and
Plus,
everybody would be V.
you'd also be playing
Yeah,
against
but
a
that's
million other
yeah.
Vs.
You're playing against other Vs, in which case that really breaks immersion for me. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like a no. There's not 400 Vs running around in the map. Like, come on, this is ridiculous. And so I hope that they do something unique and different with it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, I mean, hopefully, yeah, it definitely connects to the game in some way, like to the single player.
Finally, I found Johnny Silverhand's guitar.
Oh, okay.
You want to see it?
Well, sure. If you want to fire it over to me, I'll put it up on the screen. It'll take me a few
Okay.
seconds to do that. While we're doing that, Saib, there was something else you wanted to talk about with Cyberpunk.
So just about development time and stuff like this. Lots of people, again, there's lots of questions going around whether or not there'll be a delay. I don't believe there will be, because they did announce it almost a year out. And that usually goes with this studio. You got to remember, it's like, they're used to they're used to a lot of pressure. They're a much bigger company now. And I sit back and I think about it and I'm like, probably. But the one thing that I have been hearing from other studios is that any work related to the next consoles has been um, uh, a cluster
Of trucks,
of
cluster of
trucks,
fire trucks. Yeah.
just a giant cluster of trucks with the double like trailer attachments, and each one is like either jackknifed or like kind of like at a weird angle, and they're all like parked like really close to each other, and you're trying to like back vehicles out, but you're having to like back one truck up like 4 feet, and then move to a different truck and back that one up like another 2 feet, and it's just madness. It's just madness.
So why is that? What's going on with the new consoles?
I suspect that they're crap, which is not an insult against consoles. It is merely a statement of how consoles tend to be before they're released. We've had this problem before. We really had this problem with the last Xbox generation. We have had this problem in previous generations, in the mid-tier generations, where we're talking like a year before release. The program is still changing, right? It's still updating. And because of all the secure things and the security and the double security and the quadruple security, it's not like you just like go, okay, I just need to update the thing, just run the restart. It's like, no, they have like closed off servers where you have to arrange a particular time to hook up to get the update patched out at a particular time, and then that update window is closed, and if you're not there and the machine isn't synced up at that exact time, you're not getting that. I mean, it used to be that you had to like you had to get a like, we're talking like way back in the day, like original generations, like you had to get an update delivered to you by security mail, and then you had to like install that update manually onto the machine, and you had to make sure that you had the right update, so you're updating from like 0.819 to 0.814, or sorry, 224 or something like that. It's very, very specific in how you had to do stuff. So this is just something that's always had the problem, and it's always been like this. So there's always been issues. And again, it's a year out, but this may end up screwing up some timing things here and there, and you never know what kind of a problem that this can encounter. So I've heard this more than once now, that the next console generation is very difficult to work with. There's lots of bugs. There's lots of massive issues going on, and so where exactly does that leave anything? And the answer to that is we don't know yet. So
Could that potentially affect the PC release, though?
I tend to think no, but most companies, they want to release everything at once. Now this is for the next gen console, obviously. So
If
and
we're
it's
talking
still
about Cyberpunk, so the project that committed to release it for PlayStation 4 and
yeah,
for current generations now.
yeah.
I don't believe if that's their plan. I believe that they are going to finish first the ports for this generation to be released on time, and then worry about the PlayStation 5. I
Yeah.
guess.
So it's more or less kind of like I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, it may be a small thing, but it may be a bigger thing. So again, we're going to be keeping our eye on this, obviously. But in the end, it's like you don't need to freak out too much. So this is
Yeah,
this
it
is not
doesn't
like
sound
something
like
that
something that would necessarily, like Mad Queen said, they have pledged to bring it to the current generation consoles. So even
yeah
if working with the next gen consoles is kind of a mess, I don't see how that would affect the release date. But I mean, delays are always possible. We've acknowledged this ever since they announced the release date. Delays are always possible, and we know they pushed back their original target date. You know, being late 2019, they've pushed that into 2020. So
Let's all remember that
they
hashtag we can wait.
we can
yeah
absolutely wait. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I just feel like we're getting to the point where we won't be waiting much longer. Like I feel like if they don't hit April, that'll be surprising, but they'll release it very very shortly thereafter. That's my opinion. Could be wrong.
yeah
Well,
There was a question.
I would really appreciate that if the game is delayed, I will get really, really mad if after all the concern that was raised when this huge controversy about the working conditions, etc., project Red, if the game is delayed, if I see anybody trying to push the company to have it as soon as possible, I'm going to personally kill every single one of them because it would be highly hypocritical. Either you care about developers or you want to
mhm,
push the company so they kill them working.
yeah. Now,
Oh,
obviously,
absolutely.
obviously, Mad Queen refers to in a round of Smash Brothers for legal reasons. Um, Now, Ash, I did send you another picture. If you want to put this one up, it's up to you though. I don't know if you think this one's quite newsworthy, but I did find this one quite interesting and
Oh yes,
uh,
it's the meme of Keanu Reeves
not a
throughout
meme.
history.
This is not a meme. This is
And
verified fact. I found this online. Don't you know?
It's
and obviously everything that is online is true.
yeah,
And I sent you
exactly.
the
Well,
guitars. I
I don't
sent
know.
you the guitars, Ash.
Maybe I'll put that up. But Mad Queen has sent me some pictures here. I'm going to put up some of these guitar pictures. You want me to put them up in the order that you sent them to me here?
Yes, the only one is Silverhand's guitar. The others are guitars. I believe that one is Carrie Eurodyne.
All right. So here is Kerry Eurodyne's guitar. Now, for those of us who aren't quite as much of a lore hound as you are, who was Kerry Eurodyne?
Carrie Eurodyne
It
was the
literally says
guitarist
it
of
in the.
Samurai. And by the way, before we go on with this, I would like to answer a question of Anthony Sarver in the comments because I'm new to Cyberpunk. I'm ignorant, so sorry. But is Johnny Silverhand a domestic terrorist? No, his way of fighting corporations was with music, not
Yes, he was like a
Tyler Durden
protest.
style.
He was like a protest musician, that kind of a thing. Like
And when he sent people against Arasaka, he didn't he did it with a song, with chipping in.
interesting.
It's not that he yes, that's why I believe that we're going to see the Arasaka riot in the video game because the lyrics were changed, and there is this moment in the new song when Johnny Silverhand sings "Kill them all,"
Hmm.
and he's singing in front of an Arasaka office in Night City. So that's why
Yeah.
that's why I think
So
that it's
yeah,
going to be in the
his
game.
role was to rally and inspire people. Wrote
Hmm.
songs. It's really where he really puts the punk in Cyberpunk. Here's another picture here of a concert. So what are we looking at in this picture?
Let's see.
It's the
Here
second
it
one you
is.
sent me. Guy with kind of a spiky mohawk, It's the guitar is kind of striped.
Slayers in the background there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a random band playing a random.
Okay, so we don't know who it is, but so the guitars look very similar to normal guitars that we would see in real life. But here is Johnny Silverhand's guitar. This looks a little different. I've never seen a guitar quite like that with the just completely rectangular body to it. A cool metal fire.
Isn't that the hand? Isn't that the wrong hand?
Yeah.
Yes.
That
it's
is
supposed to be the left.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's
It's
the
the
right
right.
hand.
Well, maybe it's maybe the image is inverted.
Maybe that's not his hand. The advertiser
Well,
was just like, grab some hand.
I also suspect that he has had probably more than one guitar. I don't know if you know this, but rock stars especially are really keen on smashing guitars at shows for some reason.
So I have heard.
And
Yeah.
even if they don't, they usually have more than 3 and 4 guitars.
Probably.
Yeah. Yes.
They
This
usually
is also
usually have more than one on stage.
Hmm.
All right. So James Fullerton asked earlier in the chat here, any info on PC optimization? Do we have any new information on that?
I would say no. There's nothing new. The optimization obviously is an ongoing process. We've heard that they put a lot of time and effort into it, and you can kind of see it like already. It's like when you're seeing the showcases, it's like not very many games have been able to put that much stuff on the screen at once. And from what we've heard, from the people at the shows and seeing it, the live demo, they haven't seen any issues. So we know that there is a machine out there that'll run it very, very smoothly, right? So
Mine.
we know that at the very least. Yes, yours.
Mine. let me gloat about it. I mean, technology evolves, so soon I won't be able to say that. So meanwhile, I want to enjoy.
This is true.
I'm definitely at the point of needing a new PC, and I'm waiting until to get one that'll run Cyberpunk well.
For once that I'm part of the PC Master race, let me enjoy.
We will let you
that's not
have
true.
your moment.
When I bought the one that I had before this, I also was. So give me my months of enjoyment.
We'll give you your month or two of enjoyment before it becomes obsolete. Okay, I think that's about all that we have for Cyberpunk news and instruments. Nathan Trent says, I have like 6 air guitars. Well, good for you. Yes, I think that's all we have for Cyberpunk 2077 tonight, and I have to stop doing that, hitting the intro, when I mean to go back to this lovely picture of the 2 Keanus. Hey, Mad Queen, I mean, I didn't make this picture for this purpose, but, you feel free to enjoy that Photoshop of Keanu later if you want, and imagine the Keanu twins.
What do you think I'm doing now when I
let's just wait until later. Maybe I don't want to be a party to that. All right. You are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast, a clean, wholesome show, but still not intended for children.
Family friendly.
Well, I don't know if we'll even be able to say that anymore. If these FTC or FCC, whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's FCC.
If these regulations go through, we might have to deliberately go out of our way to not be family friendly in order to survive on YouTube. It's really
a nightmare.
It's. I wasn't gonna get into this tonight, but it's like they're doing everything possible to make life complicated for us. And
well, in this case, this isn't YouTube doing this.
No,
this is the FCC doing this.
It's the government, but
it's like government bureaucracy doing what it does best is making life difficult for you. I think, did I mention I can't remember if I mentioned this the other day, but there was a guy who was, he's a small time or decently sized company. making a product that everybody enjoys, and the state inspector comes in, says, "Oh, you're doing this wrong. You have to do this, A, B, and C direction." And then the federal, wait, did I say federal or
I
state
think you said
level?
state government.
Okay, so the state government comes in and says, "Do this ABC," and then then the federal guy comes in and goes, "No, you have to do this CBA." So in reverse order, and he sits there and goes, "You are telling me this. The state is telling me this. These two laws can't coexist because nothing will get done." And the inspectors look at them and say, "Well, that sounds like a you problem, but do this or we're going to close you down." And it's like, so they have to, like, essentially they have to have like two different things like on the go at all times for whichever inspector happens to be coming by at that moment. It's like that level of government stupidity, like true stupidity, and most government is quite stupid. It's quite it like the bureaucracy is just things that get old and then are never refreshed and never like if you ever want a fun night, just sit around and read like laws that are not enforced because they're too stupid, but they're still on the books for some reason. Like there's one particular town in the States where it's like, when walking down the street, if you do not tip your hat at the mayor, you are guilty of a misdemeanor. It's like, that the fact that got in there at some point in the past was hilarious and stupid. But and I would love to know the story behind that. Like in my head, there's two obvious routes. Either the guy was completely full of himself, or they were like, "We've got this crime kingpin here in town, but we have to hold him in order to like search his stuff and prove that he's this crime
So we need to find something to make him guilty
kingpin."
of. Yeah.
And then the mayor's like, "I've got it. We'll do this thing where we'll create this new law and we'll pass it overnight. And if you don't tip your hat to the mayor, then we'll come out of we'll jump out of the stores and arrest the guy." And it's like my head's either thinking of one of these two possibilities. There's nothing in between. It was either like some brilliant move to do something, or to like just or some guy who was just way too full of himself. And what ends up happening is that the bureaucracy is so slow and so incompetent that they can't get rid of the law. It's a ridiculous law, but they just can't get rid of it now because it's on the books. And it's like this one secretary. She moves into an office and she says, "Boss, Mr. J, you've just got tons and tons of papers here, and they don't mean anything. They just a bunch of wild, crazy scribbles. Can I get rid of them all?" And he goes, "Well, you know what? Let's be on the safe side. Yeah, you can get rid of them all, but make a copy of them all first."
Yeah.
It's like it's that level of like insanity where it's like you just can't get rid of this stuff. It's stuck on you forever. And this is why government bureaucracy is terrible. It's stupid.
Well,
Bradley?
I understand why government bureaucracy is terrible, but honestly, I didn't understand what happened on YouTube, and I wasn't pending on the news, so I don't know.
It's not. Yeah,
We'll
show it to
tell you
later.
after. Yeah, we'll get it to it. We'll let you know later, and we won't get.
Yeah.
Oh,
too
I
much
thought you were
into
going
it
to
right
talk about it.
No,
Okay.
we're not.
No,
gonna
I
be,
said nothing.
We're not going to be
We're just-
talking about it. It just kind of came up because it's fresh
Yeah.
news, and it's fresh on my mind. But Bradley James says, "I can't say online what I think of the FCC. You can't say it on the internet. It's too horrible for the internet."
Yeah,
That's
it's really
that's
really
a low
good.
opinion if I ever heard one.
Yeah.
We love seeing everybody very active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all of the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. And by the way, I do know it's annoying for people when we censor ourselves to get around the YouTube bots that are listening to our every word. We are annoyed by it too. I just wanted to say that there were some comments on it,
Yes,
in the
you're
chat
smarter
during the
than
last-
me, but then I come to your streams and I.
Mad Queen comes in. She takes care of that for us. But no,
Yeah.
in general, we we don't like doing it, having to say stupid things like cluster truck. But the YouTube bots are listening. We have to play their game.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
and
hopefully there will be another solution. But as it
and
is,
it's been hard. It has been really, really hard. We don't like playing these games, but we've already seen what happens when you don't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Look at
there
my
are other
channel.
channels. There are other channels that have had like people like it's bad. If you don't play the game, then you're completely destroyed, completely taken out. Now you'll say, a lot of people say, hey, I watch channels all the time that they skirt the law or they skirt the rules or whatever, and it never seems to catch up to them. It's like, no. Those are people who say that they're skirting the rules, but they're really not actually. And there's only one or two examples of people who are actually giving a great big giant middle finger to the system and getting away with it. But even then, it's like they lose everything. They lose their monetization completely, not just here and there. It's like completely. They lose it completely, and then they're put on these like basically to be killed lists, where it's like over time your channel is we're just gonna drain you and drain you and drain you and drain you, and it's just it's an avalanche of constantly not of your fans not getting updates, not getting links, not getting suggested, and then that just rolls on and on and on and on and on. And even some of the big guys, it's too much, and they just can't take it anymore. So we understand, very annoying, very difficult, but I suspect strongly that this is a seasonal thing, in the sense that a time will come, probably a little bit down the road here, where a lot of these ridiculous rules will be reversed, because there'll come a point where nobody's making money, and the minute that nobody's making money,
well, yeah,
or
if
the minute
there's
that
no
the fans just
incentive.
aren't there.
Currently, YouTube commented some couple of months ago, I believe, that they were starting to create a set of new rules for content creators that made more quote unquote adult content. And with adult content mostly is swearing and things like that,
Yeah.
for advertisers that were interested in more mature audiences.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there are plenty of advertisers that are willing to advertise on that more mature content. Anyway, we got way off into the weeds here. This is a conversation
sorry
for
about
another
that, but
day. No, it's
I do
good
want to bring it
conversation,
up,
but
and I also want to thank everybody, from the bottom of my heart. I thank everybody who
Oh, you
puts
have
in
one
the
of
time,
those?
who. So what?
You have one of those?
he
What-
has he has a
Oh yeah, it's kind of a replica. It's mostly
it's a relative facsimile. It's got some.
it's
Yeah,
mostly made out of
so-
it's mostly made out of silicon, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. But anyways, I seriously, thanks to all our fans, because like this is we can't do this without
We need you all. We need you all. Absolutely. And we are looking for alternate means of supporting and monetizing, but definitely, if you can share our content around, do all of that, do all those interactions, that helps immensely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about speaking of governments and being too involved in things. So China is cracking down on, in the interests of curbing gaming addiction among children, they're imposing restrictions on online gaming for minors, and that includes a curfew. So between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., gamers under 18 will be banned from playing online games in China, and it'll be restricted to 90 minutes of gaming on weekdays, 3 hours per day on weekends and holidays. Now, I found this interesting because this is already less restrictive than I am with my own kids. But it's interesting. I don't know if we have any comparative statistics to let us know, how much kids in China are gaming online. But the scariest part of this is how they intend to enforce it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're also putting caps on how much kids can spend in online games, up to the equivalent of $29 US per month for kids under the age of 16, and then it's double that for kids between 16 and 18 years old. So they're putting a cap on it. So at the top end, $60 a month is what they can put in. But they, of course, intend to enforce this by using really invasive identification techniques, including facial recognition, checking people's IDs against a national database. They have this there, folks. I mean, George Orwell. George Orwell wrote his stuff back in the day, and China came along and was like, "Hold my beer." So that's
It's funny. It's funny because we will discuss this subject later, but the advancements of gaming that were predicted 10 years ago, the technology, yes, is there, but it doesn't mean that it's for gamers to enjoy. And this is one of
very
the
true.
cases.
That's very true. There's other applications for this kind of technology. So anyway, this is these measures are being put in place to restrict children's access to online gaming and how much they can spend online. And this is in an attempt to curb gaming addiction. Like it's a move they're making to try and combat gaming addiction among kids. Now it's debatable whether or not it'll actually accomplish that end, but in any case, they are putting these restrictions on it. And presumably, this is going to bring down the amount of time that kids spend online gaming and how much they can spend. So they must be, on average, doing more than this. Like, that's kind of my logical deduction. I don't have any numbers, but on average, they must be doing more than this. So this is going to, again, making a logical deduction, this is going to actually hurt game developers who are looking at getting into the online market in China, which is, a huge booming market. And, a lot of Western developers are trying to move into this market, and it's resulting in situations like the Blitzchung situation that we talked about with Blizzard. And we're going to touch on that again in a few minutes here. But how much, though, Cyb? How much is this going to affect a company like Blizzard or Activision who's wanting to get into the market?
Right now, this is really big. So companies were expecting to make X amount of profits. With this in play, that's going to drop like a rock. I suspect that Blizzard was anticipating making X number of billions of dollars in China. I suspect that this is going to drop their gain rate by at least 50%, if not more.
Really?
Because
Okay.
this is there's so many additional effects to consider here. So one of the main effects that this is going to factor in is that kids before could play just like they could pick any number of games and play any number of games. Now they're going to be picking and choosing what games to play, and they're going to be cutting off games that are not as high on their list. And there are some games that are really time consuming and generally don't offer you the greatest experience for what you're doing. And Blizzard has a couple of those games where you're talking about, you no offline mode. So you're basically agreeing that this is the only game you're going to play this week. Because 3 hours on a weekend, really, I know kids like the average kid I know who has a new game or has not even a new game, just a general game, is going to play at least 8 hours on a weekend.
I read it, it's 3 hours per day on weekends. Otherwise, it would be the same as during the week.
That's what I'm saying. 3 hours on Saturday 8 hours on Saturday and 8 hours on Sunday.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I mean, you're cutting down their time by an absolutely massive amount. So offline games are going to become preferable, and online games that are time consuming or have time consuming stuff connected to them are suddenly going to drop like a rock. And so I suspect strongly that this will hurt a lot of games that are struggling right now in China. And once that happens, if those games are no longer profitable, then those games are going to be dropped like a rock from the platform of the developers. They're just going to stop producing it. because there are some people who just go, I'm going to waste like 4 hours in Heroes of the Storm for some reason this weekend. I don't know why. I'm just going to do it. And now suddenly those people are going to say, nope, not going to do that. Not going to do that at all. I'm going to play something that's a little bit more meaningful to me. The other thing that this does is that this does start to create a black market for online video games. And you're going to have like, hey buddy, I really need my fix. Can you hook me up with the 2 rounds? No, make it 3 rounds of Fortnite, man. Three rounds of Fortnite, okay? 5 rounds if I don't make it in the top 10, okay? In any of the first 3, 5 rounds. You got 5 rounds for me, man? Okay, yeah, man, I got 5 rounds for you. Come around back, get you into this truck and we'll be able to hook you up. Like, seriously, this is going to happen. Like, seriously. This reminds me.
There is one thing about it that I find odd.
Mm-hmm.
Because online gaming is like the 40% of Tencent's revenue. And it's a very powerful company.
I suspect it's... I don't think those numbers are right. Tencent is majority... Okay, just running off the top of my head, pretty much every single game...
checked the second quarter of 2019.
Yeah, no, those numbers are not correct. Like, there's something wrong with those numbers because that doesn't compute properly. Like, Tencent doesn't sell very many games that are offline only. Like, the number of games that they sell that are offline only don't... Yeah, there's something wrong with those numbers. And there's probably a good chance that they're altering or playing with terms or titles or definitions. I suspect there's something in there that has to do with that. So yeah.
Well, they also license a lot.
Yeah. So the other thing that this is going to create more Eric Cartman situations where he's calling for mom, bathroom, because it's like I'm not going to waste 10 minutes to get up and go to the bathroom when I'm, got 2.5 hours left of my gaming session. Are you kidding me? Like, kids are going to do this. So, and if you know what I'm referencing, that, awesome. I'm going to leave it at that. The other thing that this does is I watched an anime. I think this came out like 2-3 years ago. It was really, really, really funny. Shimoneta, I believe, is the official Japanese name, which I know I butcher Japanese all the time. I really need to figure out how to say these words a little bit better. But the English translation is a boring world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist.
Okay.
And so this isn't a world
where...
That
is the nightmare of Mr. Roover.
Yes. Now again...
That's Mr. Roover's personal hell, yes.
Yeah, let me read this out a little bit better for you. The concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist. Not that dirty jokes don't exist. The very concept of them is crushed down. This is something that like when you try to create a scenario in which we will protect our children by making sure that they never have to be near a what's the Sleeping Beauty story? She pricked her thumb on a this is probably... I'm probably barking up the wrong tree here with this example. What you're doing is you're creating something that doesn't exist for a large amount of people who knows it exists and wants it and will go out of their ways to go out of their way to get it, including overthrowing governments who refuse to let them have it. I can't tell you how many revolutions in the last 8,000 years were started because the public suddenly ran out of white bread. Actually, yeah, just white bread. Yeah, we'll go with white bread. When the public didn't have access to white bread, there were riots and leaders were decapitated. Okay? This is not... I'm not making this crap up. There's this old thing which a lot of people say, oh, she never said that, but the whole Marie Antoinette, let them eat the cake thing. It's like at some point
the French Revolution was a little more complicated than
Yes,
Why
yes, yes. But there was a number of ancient Egyptian revolutions where they ran out of white bread, or the hierarchy was running like absolute control over white bread to the point where the peasants couldn't get any. And as soon as that happened, boom, you've got yourself a full on a full on revolution.
Well,
It's
yeah,
like congratulations.
it's
Like I,
prohibition. It
yeah,
is we've seen what these things create. It creates black markets. It creates crime, and it creates a bunch of other things, and plus, it just in general doesn't work. That's why we don't have prohibition anymore. It's funny because
yeah.
I was reading a local an article posted at a bar that I was at where it was like 100 years ago. It was more than 100 years ago now, but it doesn't seem like that long ago. It was a news article that was posted about when prohibition was voted in our area, where the sort of general region where I live in, and I was like, wow. Just reading the news article and the rationale behind it, and then looking at it now and how it's like, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, I was going somewhere with that, but that slipped my mind. But anyway, yeah, Niv Ozzy says, this is where I was going. Niv Ozzy says, wouldn't they be able to just use VPNs, get around it, that kind of thing? I don't know. I don't know how their systems are set
up. A lot of them do. But the thing with the VPN is that it's two-sided. So if you're connecting to a Tencent server in China, in mainland China, they have it on their side as well. So it's not that you're logging in; it's that you have to have your regular gaming account, and then you have to have your illegal gaming account that connects to a game or a set of servers that is out of China, that is not within China at all, is out in in America or in the South Asian Sea or something like that, Japan, whatever, South Korea, whatever. You need to connect to them, and then you can play on their side. But increasingly, this is like a jailable offense because you're skirting the rules.
Plus, I think
and if you're caught skirting the rules, we're not stuff happens, especially in that particular country.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I
you
think
get
they're starting
caught
to
breaking the
employ,
rules, there's a good chance you're going to disappear. So some people do it, other people don't, and some of the ways that they get around the system is actually quite hilarious and funny. Like, no joke, the ways that the certain people are resisting the government are some really fascinating and interesting ways that they're going about it. One of the ways is that they're for internet access, they're using dial-up internet, and
get around the
like really old like we're talking like first gen dial-up internet, because the coding for it is so difficult to get that most of the government doesn't even have the ability, and certainly doesn't have the techs who are capable of reverting back to intercept that kind of data. And because it's going over a direct phone line, it's not exactly something that you can just tap and then get really quickly. So, but I mean, you're not downloading games to play on that. You're doing things to like organize resistance and stuff like that. So, it's nightmarish.
Do you remember doing online gaming on dial-up? That was a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever?
Oh, yeah.
Mad Queen, did you ever?
I think she's away at the moment.
Oh,
so
all right, yeah. So
so anyways, let's move on to the next subject.
Yeah.
Which
so
is
just speaking on
one of my favorites, actually.
Well, I'm not sure if you're referring to the Blizzard thing. We're just going to touch briefly on Blizzard.
No.
I don't think Blizzard is one of your favorites, but the next topic is going to be one of Saib's favorite things to talk about. A couple of updates on the Blizzard story. So, J. Allen Brack, the president of Blizzard, has officially, I don't know if officially, he has disavowed. I don't know how you would define an official disavowment, but he's disavowed the Chinese statement made after the Blitzchung banning, in which it was it was said that, you know, they did this to protect the, I believe it was the reputation and glory of China or something. In any case, so quick recap. We won't go into too many of the details because we've talked it to death recently. But they said in English, in sort of the Western and English-speaking world, they said, oh, we just banned him because he broke the rules of the competition. And so, you know, we brought the freaking rocket sledge down on him for a minor infraction. But then there was a statement released in China that was very clearly made it clear that the ban happened for political reasons because of the support for Hong Kong and how this doesn't align with Chinese values, that kind of a thing. So anyway, so J. Allen Brack, the president of Blizzard, has said that that statement really, that didn't come from Blizzard. It came from NetEase, which is the Chinese company that Blizzard partners with to get into the Chinese market, because foreign company has to have a Chinese partner. Like, they have to partner with a company that's based in China to do any business in China. That's the way it works. You can't just, they're not going to just let you move in. You have to work with a Chinese company. And so apparently it was NetEase that put out the statement in China, and Brack said, it is their quote, it is their employees that made that quote, it is not something that we approved, it is not something that we would have approved, it is not something that we feel like is representative of Blizzard. So he made this statement shortly after, this is from an interview with IGN that happened shortly after his speech at BlizzCon, where he addressed the situation. So I'm just putting that out there in the interest of fairness. In my opinion, it's too little, too late.
In my opinion, it's a crock of lies.
Well, it could very well be. I don't
like. I mean, no, it's absolutely true. In the sense of what legally he's saying is like, well, legally this and reality this and blah 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 blah. But no, I'm calling him a liar when it comes to, and we totally didn't agree with it. No, of course they agreed with it, because they only push for, people speaking out when it's something that benefits their bottom line. If it doesn't benefit their bottom line, they kill it as fast as humanly possible. So, yeah.
And they still haven't undone, Blitzchung's ban. They still haven't made any note, even during his opening keynote at BlizzCon. He didn't even mention Blitzchung. All he apologized for was acting too fast and then not acting fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
Which
now, and again, they may want to. Yeah, no, I'm done with this. Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah.
And before you move on, I don't know if you commented this. I'm sorry. I just want to make coffee because it's 5 a.m. in the morning here. Did they comment what will happen with the two guys that were let go? That had absolutely nothing to do with it?
The two casters, their bans were reduced to 6 months as well.
Why?
Because,
were they even punished in the first place?
Very good question. Because they didn't want to piss off China. That's
it's
bottom line.
That's all it is.
It was
but I mean, how does piss off anyone that two people that had absolutely nothing to do with it did absolutely nothing about it?
No, it doesn't make sense. You're absolutely right. It doesn't make any sense. But this was Blizzard making a show for China. That's my opinion. But I'm very convinced of that opinion. And if they retracted from that just wouldn't look good. And they're trying to get into that lucrative Chinese market, which we'll have to see if they still think it's worthwhile with these new restrictions, of course, that the Chinese government is bringing in. So there you go. There was something else that I was going to discuss with Blizzard. I guess I'll just touch on it briefly. He also said in his speech, this being J. Allen Brack, that they were, how devoted they are and how open they are to people expressing themselves. And yet, like he said that they as a company believe in freedom of expression. Ironically enough, during that live stream, they had the live chat turned off.
Yeah,
but there was
really,
yeah, absolutely.
He also said that that they do not condone or they do not force their employees to police their speech on their own private social medias. And a few days before this, somebody was forced to remove some of their speech in support of Hong Kong.
Yeah, there was a coach of one of the Overwatch.
Was told
Overwatch
you
esports
remove
teams.
that or you're fired, basically.
Yeah.
Like you'll be blacklisted and you'll never play us again. And it's like, excuse me, well, if you believe this, then why is this a thing?
I would encourage J. Allen Brack to take his own advice and realize that actions are going to speak way louder than words.
J. Allen Brack, whatever you can do, for the love of God, whatever you can do to make this happen, leave Activision. It's like, I don't care how much it costs. If you have to go into debt for it, do it. If you have to, like, whatever you pull, we look at Destiny and we see Destiny, huge improvement. Destiny 2, huge improvement because they got out from underneath the thumb of that vile institution. And I mean that in every negative connotation I could possibly. Activision is a vile, vile institution right now. They are probably one of the worst companies on the planet for the health and well-being of the products and the IPs that they own and operate. The only ones who are worse than them is EA, and I mean, like, Bethesda's really pushing towards that line as well. However,
I don't even really. It's hard to say that EA is worse at this point.
I do have to add in the stipulation that we have been hearing some interesting things when it comes to Bethesda. We have been hearing some very interesting things, and it's, I don't know, there's some interesting stuff. I'm trying to verify it. But it would explain a lot. It's actually not what I mentioned the other day. It's about them preparing to go public. It's something else, actually. Completely something else. Totally something different. Explains all of what's happening with 76 and actually means that we're going to see some better games coming from them down the road. But it takes a lot of explaining. It's a very complicated thing. And again, I don't have confirmation that this is true. So until we can, like, verify it, continue treating them like crap, because that's what they've been doing to us, the gamers, playing their products, treating us like absolute garbage. So yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways,
all right, we'll get on to our final
topic.
This
is the subject of this year. Did you notice? This year and year and a half, companies treating their products like shit.
Yes, it's that's true. This is gaming in 2019. It's very sad. So I wonder if they predicted this back in 2009. I wonder if they looked a decade into the future and said, "Wow, there are going to be, the new business model is going to be treat your customers like garbage." I wonder if they saw the rise of esports, of massive indie game market, virtual reality, or microtransactions. Well, as it turns out, not really, but they did have some interesting predictions from 10 years ago. Now, 2009, I don't know about you, 2009 doesn't feel like that long ago in some ways, and it seems like it feels like they should have foreseen some of this stuff. Like, it's kind of surprising to me. Some of the predictions that
I don't know. Microtransactions happen so slowly that I can't remember a moment the moment that I said, okay, that's going to be the future.
It was just this gradual progression, this gradual push forward. What year was Morrowind? When did that game come out? It would have been before.
I'm looking up something else.
Before 2009, because Skyrim was 2010 or 2011, and Morrowind was a few.
May
years
1, 2002.
Morrowind was 2002. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's earlier than I thought.
I remember exactly when I knew that this microtransaction stuff was going sideways like this, and that was 2004.
What tipped you off?
It was the sadly, it was the original BioWare who did 2 expansions for Neverwinter Nights that required you to be online all the time, and they had set it up like kind of like a microtransaction. And I
Oh.
realized that they were going to be putting out content in the future that required you to be connected to the internet constantly. So, yeah, that's basically where I remember going, huh, this doesn't look right. And I remember mentioning it to a few people, um, who shall remain nameless, and they kind of stepped back from it because they thought, yeah, it's probably kind of dangerous. But then EA stepped in at some point down the road, and well, we all know where that ended up. So,
But
I
we're
must
gonna.
confess that I find very funny the expression "games as a service."
mhm.
I mean, service? Games as a casino would be more honest. Service?
Yeah, service
I
implies
find the expression very funny.
service implies that they're providing you something that you value. Anyway, as garbage as a lot of gaming is this year, and I mean not everything. We have had the Outer Worlds, which is fantastic. I know you've been playing that too, Mad Queen.
Yes, I
anyway.
already finished it.
I've been loving it. But anyway, we're gonna go back to 2009 and take a look at some things that were being said from people in the industry that were, looking forward and saying, this is where we think gaming's going to be in a decade. And so we're going to read some quotes. So, Saib, you got some stuff up there that you wanted to read?
Oh yeah. This is really good, and this is where, because most of these were made by quote unquote analysts in the industry, and that's why I said this is one of my favorite topics, because I get to point out how utterly stupid some of these quote unquote analysts in the field are. Some of this stuff that they drew from, like here's I'll start with this one. The prediction that Apple would be making an entry into the console market, and for Apple this would be incredibly easy, and that Sony and Xbox will face massive declines over the next decade, opening the door to other console manufacturers to get in on the action, of which, of course, would be Apple.
Now, I don't see the Apple thing as that ridiculous of a prediction. The idea that Sony and Microsoft would decline, I find that bizarre.
No, both of these things are hilariously ridiculous, because Apple never made a console. They never even got close to making a console.
No.
They never showed interest in making a console. This was the same 10 years ago. And this never changed. At no point did Apple say, you know what, guys? You know what we need to do? We need to make a console. Yeah.
Maybe they had in mind the revenue generated by mobile games that they had in the Apple Store.
Yeah, I was going to
The
say
Apple
they
Store
never
was
did make a
barely
console.
getting ready back then.
They didn't make a console, but they have gotten into the gaming market.
Yeah, as a platform. I mean, as a platform, yes, but it's not the same as saying that they're going to get into console gaming, because Apple always had kind of like a little gaming niche, and I mean, it's moneymaker for them now, but it's like, yeah. But
it's
anyways,
definitely
by
not a
2020
competitor to the big consoles.
So some more of these. So all physical media will be completely phased out by 2020, and all games will be sold through digital downloads straight to the consoles, and stores like GameStop will be closed for good.
Well, that's close to being true.
Pretty close, yes, pretty close, but not quite. Not and way too early.
Well, even though now computers don't have a CD or DVD reader,
Yeah.
when you play on console, being able to resell the game or to buy it secondhand is still a thing.
Yeah, this is true.
Which is something that in digital
so
you
it's
can't
less
do.
prevalent on console, but on PC, you even buy a boxed copy of a game in a store. And
yeah, but on
often you
PC,
get a
most
download
PCs
code.
don't have a reader right now. You can't put the CD anywhere. That's
Yes.
different. The console uses the physical it has a reader for the physical game, but
Yes,
PCs,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
my PC doesn't have it, for instance. And I know a lot of people has a PC or a lap that don't have it. So I understand that in PC gaming it is normal that everything is digital, but in a console that has a reader and that you have the chance of selling the game and also the playing buying it second hand, I believe that this is going to be a thing for long.
Yeah.
Sorry, it is or is not going to be a thing for long? Like, do you think?
I think that people, unless they remove the readers from the consoles, people is always going to try to resell the games and buy new ones. You don't want to keep all the games you have.
Oh, absolutely. Now we know game companies would like to get rid of those resales, but
Yeah, they would love to, but I mean, the market sometimes regulates itself.
Yeah. So
anyway, so it's
all right. So
supposed to be
anyways,
true, but not
keep
entirely. Yeah.
let me plow through some of these. Okay, so the other thing that one leading producer leading producer in the field said that the next 10 years for G7 games would be an oversaturated market, and that all developers and creators would have to minimize costs and utilize time wisely in order to survive the industry's incredibly static growth and non progress in the industry. So, like in the last just in last just a few years, the yearly revenue for video games is up and around well past the $40 billion mark. So yeah, this guy was saying that it was going to decline from around 10 billion downward, and it's now quadrupled itself. So
Well,
congratulations. And
in the part of the money, they didn't get it all right. But in the part of the market being saturated and having a lot of competition, this is usually quite an excuse that AAA game studios used to, justify putting microtransactions in single-player games. Oh, the games are so expensive to make, and we need to minimize the resources and blah 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 blah.
yeah,
Right. No, exactly. But yes, I mean, the market is more saturated. There are a lot more games now, but there are also a lot more people playing games.
mm-hmm.
It's a
Yes, but I mean, the market has grown, I believe, more than the number of players, and the market, because when we're talking about games, it's like we have in mind mostly PC gaming, but there's also mobile gaming, and if we count the both types of gaming, I mean, the market exploded beyond what the amount of players that can play all the games. I mean, I remember back in the day when you wanted to specialize in a genre of games, it was very difficult. You had one game that was more or less good a year if you were lucky. And now I can say that I play open world science fiction games, and I have plenty.
right. So
Yeah,
people are playing more games too.
yeah.
So
So all right.
lots
So
of
again,
factors.
I want to kind of mow through these real quick so we can kind of cover as many of them as we can. So what back in 2008 2009, they were also saying that basically small time multiplayer games are on the way out, and that the only multiplayer games people will be playing in the future will be ones where you're connecting thousands of players at the same time, meaning basically MMOs, and that games like 1 versus 100 were going to be a huge success, and everybody would be playing games that are like X Factor. Good lord, I haven't even heard of the X Factor as a show in general for like years, and that people would be competing for cash prizes on quiz shows constantly. It'd be a new era of basically like just thousands and thousands of Jeopardy like games online all the time. It's like, I mean, I guess you could kind of say that this is kind of real or come to
There's
pass in the
aspects of
form
it
of
that have come true. Yeah.
like in like Twitch streaming, where it's like one person versus like 100 of their people watching, but I mean it's really 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 quite different. So it's like a couple of the other things as far as like tech and like graphics, they're like, okay, so everybody is gonna by 2020 we're gonna have it so that every single rendering of every single thing that you see in every single game will be convincingly real, and that there'll be the ability to just scan yourself into video games and have yourself your own person, your body, like running around as a character within a game just on immediate load up, which is like, okay, sure, because that never happened either. Another person, this was an analyst, believed that conversations with NPCs would be so realistic that you'd have a hard time understanding who the player is, like who's the AI and who a player is, because that would be so realistic. Big miss on that one. That hands-free motion gaming would be the biggest thing in 2020. You would be sitting on your couch controlling your video game by moving your hands. Again, why somebody thought that this would come in 2020 is absolutely beyond me.
For the Kinect.
The Kinect, and then there was this was when the Wii was really popular, the first Wii, and people were waving those.
But to be honest, I tried all of them. The Kinect was pure shit. I have one. I know. I mean, technically, it was unable to properly detect the movement of your hands. And the Wii, to be honest, it was only good for shooters, because you could point at the screen. That's the only thing that you could do with it. Obviously, no. I mean, you could do more things, but it's the at least for my personal taste, it was the only thing where having this type of controller actually improved the gaming experience. For the rest,
fair enough. I think one of the games that they made one of the most use out of it was in the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, where they actually, you had to have the upgraded motion controls, and you would actually angle your sword.
Again, they're saying that no controllers, hand motion only.
Yes, no, I
well, that's the Kinect basically.
We kind of went off on a bit of a tangent. I think the no controllers thing is it is a weird concept, and to have that work.
But again, these are predictions that massive companies told very rich people to invest in these ideas, because these ideas was what was going to control the outward direction for the next decade. And again, this is where it's like, these people are idiots. Another great one here.
Well, before you go on, The Gamer. Do you remember the film The Gamer? They were playing without controllers. It was released in 2009.
Yeah, sadly, I remember.
I did never see that.
Movie.
No.
Well, it's the movie is shit, but they play a game and they play without controllers.
Yeah, I know the premise of it. It's a terrible film. It's absolutely, like, again, it's one of these ones where they try to like pitch it as like, this is a nerdy game movie. It's a movie all about games, and it's like 5 minutes into it, it's not, and there's nothing to do with games. It's about some rich guy trying to get revenge for some random thing. It made very little to zero sense. Terrible plot.
Now, the one area where I could see this prediction coming true is in the realm of VR. It doesn't make a ton of sense to not have a physical controller
again
when you are.
We're talking about no controllers.
That's where that's what I'm saying. Looking
this has nothing to do with VR, because VR you need controllers. You have controllers.
No, but what I'm looking is down the road in the future, if they found a way to remove the controllers from your VR setup, and you could actually just use your hands and fingers to actually manipulate. That's not what they were.
That's not.
No, I'm not. I know that's not what they were talking about. You just gotta. You hear what I'm saying? I'm speculating now into the future and saying this could come true in the context of VR. I know that they weren't talking about VR, but in the context of VR, I could see this working. I don't see it working when you're playing games on a flat screen like your PC monitor or on your TV at all. They tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah,
it didn't work technically, but also I felt ridiculous.
Yeah, Well, anyway, so this analyst, and I don't mention their names because we don't want people to search out these people, right? So don't mention names. This next analyst was absolutely brilliant. Suggested that safe to say that all AAA games will be authored in purely 3D, and that all games will be played on 3D component monitors, and that you will not need glasses for home 3D console play because the monitors were just going to be that cool. Again, a huge miss on this one. Like, I knew 3D was kind of big back in that particular time period, but like to just like way overshot the concept of where 3D stuff would be. Like, just oof, they really missed the ball on that one.
Yeah, 3D TVs just did not take off. I don't even bother seeing movies in 3D now. It's even movies that are like all about the visual effects and stuff. It's like $5 more for some mildly amusing effects. Whatever. I'm okay
Yeah.
with gaming or watching stuff on a flat screen. Maybe that's because I'm old now. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, that's about it. So that's the bulk of what these, like, again, this is stuff that people, again, these are analysts, people in the industry, who look at this content, who look at this stuff, and who directly say that this is what people should be investing and looking forward to, and they get this stuff wrong all the time. It's not that they're wrong a little bit, it's that they're so off the mark that if you were taking their advice and investing in it 100% of the time, you would be broke. Like 100% of the time, after investing $10 million into whatever they're suggesting that you invest into, you would be getting basically nothing, or you'd be getting pennies on the dollar of stuff after these companies have gone bankrupt. This is the realm of these analysts who are telling you, oh, hey, this is the way that this is going to be. It's like, no, actually, it's going to be nothing like this. So, wow, amazing.
They also failed to forecast the evolution of video games as an entertainment, because when they talk about the industry, they mostly talk about the developing the technology and creating the games and playing the games.
Mm-hmm.
But the industries that were created around it, like the esports, like YouTube, like streaming on Twitch, things like that, is something that they didn't think of, especially esports, which makes a lot of money right now.
Oh, yeah. So what I think is going to be cool is that in the future here, for probably something like later in the December period, we'll do a predictions video ourselves for like kind of like looking into the future. And we'll make a couple of predictions ourselves, and then that'll be kind of fun to review that in another decade. Ooh, isn't that a scary thought?
Yeah. Because I mean, will they? Yeah. Will we remember to do it? That's the question.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'd be interested to hear, your thoughts of where things are going.
To hell.
Microtransactions.
They're going to hell.
Microtransactions are unfortunately here to stay. They will stay in some format or another because it's just too much money to pass up.
Mm-hmm.
And there are just too many shills out there who will, not shills,
I'm going to say something.
Keep
Sorry,
buying
please go on.
over and over and over and over and over and over again. So
I'm sorry, you make a pause and I think you're done.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
I'm going to say something, and sorry for interrupting you all the time, because I think you're going to make a pause. Then I go in and well, you're going to continue. I'm going to say something that I say all the time, but I'm going to say it once again. This is one of the reasons why I want Cyberpunk 2077 to make a shit ton of money, but a shit ton of money. Because now the hype is not only on the players. All the rest of developers are now observing to the Project Red, and if it works in a way that they make a shit ton of money, this is going to be the start of other companies copying the business practices. They already did with the free expansions, the free DLCs and the paid expansions. Other developers also try to imitate this model, even if it's to create more revenue for the original game. But if they make a lot of money without microtransactions and only by quality, please. And sorry for my cat in the background.
Meow.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is. We do have to. We can't necessarily stop everybody from supporting the bad practices we don't like, but we can. We can definitely.
But we reached the point that if we don't want to support the bad practices, we don't have much games to play. You know?
That's very true. But it's games like it is practices and companies in games like CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077 that we do want to throw our support behind. We try to do our part, absolutely, and supporting them financially is definitely a good idea if you want to see more of that in the gaming industry. Companies like Obsidian, promising right up front.
I know people that pre-ordered more than one copy
of Outer Worlds or of Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, you look at things like even when Dark turned down Epic exclusivity. It's this little indie game made by one guy, and people heard about it. There were people buying the game with no intention of playing it. There were there were a bunch of comments and things saying, you know what, this doesn't look like my thing, but I want to support what you're doing. I want to support this kind of integrity, which, as I've said many times, shoots to oblivion this narrative that gamers are nothing but toxic, entitled crybabies. Because that just completely dismantles that narrative that we're all just a completely toxic community and that we're all just entitled brats. But that people respect that now, and hopefully there's enough, there's enough weight behind the support for the good practices that it tips the scales a bit. Absolutely. Now, to dismantle big companies like EA or Activision, or to harm them to the point where they have to restructure, they have to change what they're doing. I mean, that'll take a lot. That would really take a lot, and that'll really take a cultural shift in gaming to accomplish that. But we can.
Well, there'll be a lot of games that go under. There'll be a lot of studios and a lot of publishers. I think publishers are really not needed anymore, because why do you need a publisher if you can raise every dime that you need via your customers? And so why even bother with that? So there are some people who are experts and skilled in the world of what the good things that a publisher brings, but those people will just translate over into either consultants or smaller companies that handle more marketing and that kind of stuff. So it might decrease, but it's never going to go away. As far as how that kind of a thing affects it, but the publishing companies themselves are going to start to become, they're going to start to crack and break and fall apart. Not every single game can be crowdfunded, but we will start to see more and more of that function, because again, the people that are gamers are increasing every year, and increasingly there is a bigger and bigger and bigger audience for people who want particular games, and all you need is 10,000 of them to be dedicated enough to fund the game, and boom, you've got yourself a game.
Yeah, but I mean, then you have
it
to
happens
take
like
on,
in System Shock.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Then you take on. That's the thing. A game developer is not necessarily equipped to handle all of the publishing side of things. The person with the skills to make the game is not necessarily the same person who knows how to market that game and do all of the things that a publisher does. There's a lot there. And so I mean, the concept of having a third-party publisher itself, like, it's neither positive or negative. It's a way of structuring things to, in theory, you have this other company doing, offloading a bunch of the work off your own back, and they take a cut of the profit, but, because of their involvement, you're going to make way more sales, da-da-da-da-da. It's not a bad concept in and of itself, but they are a stakeholder in the project. And when they come in and start saying, you know what, we know we're not the people with the expertise in actually making the game, but here's a list of 15,000 changes we want you to make in order to, because we think, and our highly paid analysts are telling us this is the future of gaming, like I was saying, and they're gonna be 99% wrong, but that's where a lot of these problems. That is one source of a lot of the problems in the gaming industry. And so there's a couple of other models where we see things happening differently, and they're very promising, like with CD Projekt Red being their own publisher. They handle the publishing of their own games. They maintain control over it all. They don't have another company breathing down their neck saying, no, you've got to put in microtransactions. No, you can't do it this way. You can't do it that way. You have to cut these corners. You have to cut those corners.
Well, I will be happy if the next step in the evolution of the company is publishing.
Sure, like if they kept their company values that they currently have and started publishing games for others, that might work well. But the other model that's looking very promising is like what we saw with Overwatch, with Microsoft being, well, okay, actually, it was Private Division that was actually the publisher for the Outer Worlds. But with Microsoft, bought Obsidian, and future Outer World properties or titles and other properties that Obsidian produces, Microsoft will be the publisher. But they, at least, what it looks like they're doing, and hopefully they stick to it, as we've talked about many times before, their goal seems to be to take a hands-off approach, let Obsidian handle what they are good at, which is producing a good game, and taking a light touch approach as a publisher, and not interfering too much, and then publishing the game and making crap tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another approach to it that could be very promising down the road, and that's one of the reasons why I was very interested in supporting the Outer Worlds. And thankfully, it's a really great game that because I wouldn't be promoting it if I didn't absolutely love it, or if it wasn't a good game, we would put out an honest review, and you can see our review on it. Unfortunately, and we've been honest about the problems with it, like the issues with the motion sickness, which I'm surprised, actually, Matt. I mean, have you been struggling with that at all? The motion sickness issues with
No, the number of options they had to optimize the game to avoid that were plenty, and
so you were able to fix it to the point where it didn't bother you. That's good. I know
yes, in parts that the game was darker or more contrasted, I had problems, but in general terms, I could play it comfortably.
Okay, that's really good to know. We put a video out about it, giving some tips about it, but I know Cyb is unable to play it, and we've been open about how that's an issue with this game. But I've been playing it, and our associate Jamie as well, and we've been having an absolute great time. I can't wait to have time to play it each day. When I get the opportunity to. So it's great having these companies that have pro-consumer values and value their fans. Oh, that reminds me of another thing. Obsidian is going to be at XO19, the Xbox conference XO19, and that's coming up in November. That suggests to me that Outer Worlds is doing really well. Possibly more content coming from it, or they might have.
I commented on this earlier on Twitter, and the problem is that are under sort of a contract with Private Division, and they are being very, very, very manipulative. So why would you want to make another product for another game when you could just launch right into working on the second one in the series and throw out a handful of like small little tiny content or whatever and some fixes and whatever to the main game, but then launch the second game underneath your new publisher, people handing you money to do stuff, being Microsoft in this case, and then being able to do whatever you want because they have made this clear, and I cannot emphasize this enough. Microsoft has made it clear, which is why I truly think that they have turned over a new leaf. They said, just do whatever you want to make whatever game that you want to make, and the only thing that you can't add is things that we would go to jail for, i.e., stuff that you just can't put into a video
I
game
suppose that's a reasonable restriction.
Yeah,
just
and that's it. They've said you do what you think is a good game. You guys have specifically talking about the crew over there at Obsidian right now, the writers, the leads. There's one kind of bad voice there, but other than that, everybody there has been instrumental in making some of the best games and some of the best genres and some of the best IPs that gaming has ever had, period. These guys have been behind it all, and they're being told do whatever you want within with a reasonable budget, which is actually a lot of money. It's like basically they've given them like 200 million and said go nuts. They haven't actually given them 200 million in cash and said do what you go nuts. They're like, you need about 200 million, we'll set that aside for you, and they're paying the bills every week. So that is what's happening. They're saying you need more people, go ahead, recruit like crazy, recruit as many people as you need, bump the studio up to whatever you think you can handle. And this is why I think Microsoft is really doing it. Anyways, you want to call this before we hit the 2 hour mark that's coming up?
Yeah, we're pushing 2 hours again. We've been doing that a lot lately, but
yeah, that's good.
We have all of you sticking around and listening, which is fantastic. We absolutely appreciate it.
Yeah, Niz in the comments, you're 100% right. This is why I think that they'll probably aim to just go straight into making the second game, because this has done so well, and why release a couple of DLCs and put yourself another year or two behind in the process? I'm not saying this is exactly what they're going to do, but don't be surprised if the Outer Worlds does not get any DLC, maybe get some light stuff, and then what we end up seeing is we see an Outer Worlds 2 a lot sooner than a lot of people anticipated. That, I think right now, I'm leaning towards that being a pretty darn good potential thing. Because this is really we're really looking at something that could be quite game changing here with this. So
this could definitely be a franchise, a big franchise. And it seems with them going on board for a full presence at XO19, it seems likely to me that they will have something to announce. If not, I mean, it's possible, I suppose, they're being brought on just to talk about the Outer Worlds, or just have a booth there where we don't have any inside info on this that I'm aware of. But yeah, it's very cool. I mean, the Outer Worlds seems to be doing really well. I believe it has turned out to be the game that people were hoping it would be. It's, as I said in my review, you can feel the smallness of it in some ways. It's not a AAA game, but it's fantastic for what it is. And with that, we will wrap up for the night. So thank you so much, everybody, for the great conversation in the chat. Thank you for supporting this show by listening live or after the fact. Thank you for slamming that like button before you leave or before you switch to the next video or close that browser tab. Definitely slam that like button if you haven't already. We really appreciate that. And thank you, Mad Queen, for joining us today.
Sorry. Thanks to you for having me.
You're very welcome. Hopefully you get some sleep eventually. or hopefully that coffee picks you up. Pour me a cup, will you? I would like to thank our Patreon supporters and channel members who make this content possible. Our big damn heroes on Patreon, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters. Our channel members, Jason Cropper, Mr. Padzernik, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Paul Young, and Night City Punk. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we appreciate your interactions on those platforms as well. And hey, don't forget, you can join the live show on YouTube on Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. See the Discord server for exact times and schedules. Join the Discord too. Join in on the conversations. We love having you there. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Subsidian and the Mad Queen, thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you again very soon.